Well, CBS News legal analyst Rikki Klieman is here to talk a little bit more about this case. Thanks for joining us, Rikki. Now, this gentleman, Robert Dare, is going to be making a court appearance later on today. At some point, he's going to have an attorney, and they're going to have to figure out a defense. It seems almost indefensible what we know so far about what happened. But what sort of defense do you think they'll be able to sort of cobble together?
Well, as we've seen in Colorado, which is, by the way, a death penalty state, in the movie killings in Aurora, what one can expect in a case like this is an insanity defense to be mounted by his lawyer. While saying that, a lawyer has to be ethical as well, which means that the lawyer has to have him examined. Probably the court, as well as the prosecutor, will want independent psychiatric examinations to see if there really is a reasonable basis for an insanity defense. Now, he may say that we only know this little snippet that you had mentioned, Anne Marie, before about body parts. And so he may say that he was looking in his delusional state, but it has to be a delusional state, that he really wanted to get rid of one harm in favor of another. And one of the things that happens here is he must be delusional. This, of course, sounds, from his point of view, to be quite rational, that he's thought about this, that he has really thought about these issues involving pro-life and pro-choice. So that is not going to ring in his favor.
So let me ask you this. Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee, he's called this shooting an act of domestic terrorism. Let's first listen to what he said. I want to ask you something about this.
Regardless of why he did it, what he did is domestic terrorism, and what he did is absolutely abominable, especially to those of us in the pro-life movement, because there's nothing about any of us that would condone or in any way look the other way at something like this.
So what factors are considered when you decide to label an attack like this as terrorism?
We've often talked about this with these mass shootings, not only in the case of something like this at a Planned Parenthood, but whether it's in Aurora or whether it's at a school. The theoretical term of terrorism, in quotes, in terms of how the law has looked at it, has been an act involving a political purpose. We may be saying how many angels dance on the head of a pin, or that we're splitting hairs. There is no question that whether it's terrorism with a capital T or terrorism with a small t, which is not a separate category, is that when you go in to do a mass shooting, whether it's a store, a shopping center, a mall, a school, a theater, or in this case, Planned Parenthood, that what you are ultimately doing is terrorizing people. There is a federal law, by the way, that does have to do with prosecutions involving access to these clinics. It does not need to be applied here. They don't have to go to a federal court because you have sufficient penalties and laws to prosecute these homicides, particularly when you have one of a police officer as well, which is an enhancement, as well as injuring other people. They'll stay in the state court of Colorado, which is my prediction.
So I just want to ask you sort of to clarify, labeling it terrorism, does that have any legal implications at all?
It would only have legal implications if you were going to use a separate federal charge. But we do get into this argument, which is really parsing in society about whether or not something is terrorism. You know, we've often wondered why someone doesn't go in New York into Times Square with simply an AK-47 and start shooting it around. That would be an act of terrorism in the sense that it would terrify even if there is no political motivation behind it.